Welcome to the Job Matchmakers Podcast, where we share stories from employment consultants about supporting people with intellectual and developmental disabilities to find employment in their communities. One person, one job at a time.
This podcast is produced by the Minnesota Transformation Initiative, a technical assistance center focused on expanding capacity for competitive integrated employment across Minnesota. We are your hosts, Sherry Healy and Brian Bajan, and we work at the Institute on Community Integration at the University of Minnesota. Thanks for joining us. Welcome to another episode of the Job Matchmakers Podcast. In this episode, we're talking with Cynthia Capote, an employment specialist with Reach for Resources.
Reach for Resources is a provider here in the Twin Cities that offers employment services as well as other supports for people with disabilities. Welcome, Cynthia. Thank you for joining us in the studio today. Can you tell us how you got into this work?
Hi, Brian and Sherry. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast today. I'm really excited to be here. I got into this line of work as my first degree-related job out of college. I worked in various nonprofits throughout my college experience, and I actually worked at a different disability service organization in college called Proof Alliance. And they do self-advocacy. They do self-advocacy and policy work for individuals with FASD, which is fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. And so that was my introduction to the work of disability services. And I just really, really loved that experience. So when I was applying to jobs after college, after I was done with my college degree, I found Reach for Resources. I did not actually know about the field of employment services before I applied to the job of employment specialist at Reach. But when I was doing my job research, my job applications for myself, and I found it, I pretty much instantly was very excited. And I interviewed for my job, and then I got my job offer, and I started, and it's been my favorite job that I've ever had in my life.
It's a great way to move into the conversation we're having today, which is about the first person you ever did the first full discovery process with. Can you tell us a little bit about the person that you were working with and what you learned about him as you got to know him?
So the person that I am going to be sharing the story of today his name is Logan. He was the first person that I had ever done discovery with. I started working with him a month after I assumed my role as an employment specialist, so I was brand new. And my organization had also just started employing the Griffin Hammis Discovering Personal Genius assessment tool. So it was incredibly new for everyone at my organization, all of my coworkers who I would talk to about the discovery process. It was all new for us. So I just started. It's a great system. I really was able to see why the discovery process was designed in the way that it was, because I really was able to get to know him very quickly and develop a relationship with him very quickly. So I started with the contact interviews. I interviewed his mom, his uncle, his dad, and a few coworkers at his parents' business. He is someone who had worked at his parents' business since he was like 10. His parents do HVAC supply. So they warehouse and distribute all of the various parts in HVAC systems. And they also have these trainings for HVAC professionals. So Logan had a lot of responsibilities there. one of the early discovery activities I did with him was going to his parents' place of work so that I could see what tasks he was doing at his parents' company. And I learned that he was incredibly proficient in QuickBooks, incredibly accurate, incredibly good with numbers, had a phenomenal memory, and really had a good understanding of warehouse layouts, warehouse responsibilities, how warehouses work. And on top of that, though, he is a very, very, very talkative guy. So he would tell me about the various things that he was interested in. Even now, when I go and I meet with him, he's always telling me about whatever like anime or show he watches or whatever activities he's doing. It was not hard to get to know him because he was very, very talkative and very social. And the positive relationship that I was able to establish, I think, just made him very ready and open and willing to tell me all these things. So after I went and I visited him at work, I think I had us play a game. He was really into board games and video games of all kinds, and I had a board game that I figured he would enjoy. Just like a society world-building game. And my objective there was to kind of see his ability to learn rules, apply rules, and then also if he could apply the strategy. And he did. He loved the game. And also what I noticed there, it's a game that has a lot of reading because there's a bunch of different like species and special abilities. So you have to read all of them and understand all of the different rules. And he did very well. He was very interested in it. And so I also learned, oh, this guy is incredibly good with rules. And so that was another piece of what eventually became his job. And then I don't think this was the last activity that we did, but it was the most informative one. His next activity, he actually selected. He told me he wanted to go mini golfing at the Mall of America because he loves golf. And he's actually a very good golfer. But while we were there, we passed by the Lego store and he started talking my ear off about the Legos and how he loves Legos, all the different like types of Lego sets that he does. He would tell me about the Lego Death Star, which if you're not a Lego aficionado like him, is one of the hardest Lego sets that exists. It's got like thousands of pieces. It's very time consuming, very difficult. I actually did know because my fiance and his brother, when they were kids, had built this Lego set and it sits in their basement at my in-laws' house. So I was very aware and I did like connect with him on this. So that brings us to the most informative discovery activity that we had done together. I brought a Lego set from my house to his apartment and I had us build it together, but I did nothing. I just like wanted to see how he would do it. I was like organizing the pieces by color, which he really didn't need, but just so that I was like doing something, but I was mostly watching. So I witnessed, he built this Lego set in like 4 hours total, but that was just the amount of time that I spent there. It included all the time of me like coming in and getting ready. All told, he probably finished it in like 2 hours. He would just like flip the pages of the instructions, literally just like glance at the page and then immediately know how to put the pieces together. And over the course of that whole Lego set, he made 2 mistakes and he diagnosed the mistakes without going back into the instructions and was able to just fix it. I've never seen anyone build Legos like that. Even like when I build Legos with my fiance, who's an engineer, it's just not like that. This was like a hard Lego set that we were building. It was a little like Volkswagen Beetle. And I was able to see that he had a very good 2D to 3D spatial understanding, which it like very, very good. He just understood what the blueprint looked like in the real world. And so with that activity having been done, I spoke to my manager. We have like bi-weekly check-ins where we're supposed to discuss the progress with each of our people. And so I had shared this with my manager. And so we had started doing our discovery process, or we had started doing our job search process after we finished the discovery activities. I worked on his resume with him. We went on a couple of informational interviews. But then my manager came to me with a potential job, a warm lead, we call it. He had spoken to a man, who was the vice president of sales at a furniture company called Acre, who was looking for someone to do what is called a spec check. So Acre, the company, and I've learned most furniture design companies, and this is like, it's not just furniture, they make office workspaces. So, but they also handle like all of the furniture, all of everything. They do everything. It's like very, very, very high end IKEA only for corporations. So they just cubicles, everything, but it's very elevated, very aesthetically pleasing, very pretty. And again, very high end. So they use a computer software to design the blueprints, and then that software also creates a bill of materials with all of the items that need to be ordered by the buyer to furnish an office. So what the VP of sales, Chad, was looking for was someone who could cross-reference the blueprint and the bill of materials and find mistakes, because the computer program is imperfect and makes a lot of mistakes. And so because I had done the Lego activity with Logan, and also because I knew that he was incredibly accurate and incredibly good with numbers and very, very, very detail-oriented, and I had relayed all of this to my manager, he brought this to me, and then I emailed Chad to set up an informational interview. And he responded. He was very enthusiastic, and we set up the informational interview. Logan met him. It was a virtual informational interview. He wasn't super into it at first. He was like, well, it sounds like something I might like, but I don't know. We'll have to see. And so pretty much immediately after the informational interview, Chad emailed me back, we want to move forward with Logan. We love him. How do we go about making a job? And so I emailed him, oh, well, this is what we normally do, but I didn't know because this is my first time doing anything of the sort. But just leaning on my trainings, and I had talked to my coworkers about what I was going to do and just my knowledge of jobs, and from my own like workplace experience, having worked in the United States, I negotiated all of the terms of his job. I tried to find analogous tasks to his job at his parents' company. So at his parents' company, he'll help with the setting up the trainings. He'll like stock the mini fridge. He would they had these like pamphlets, not really pamphlets. It's like a stack of different pamphlets that they distribute to all of the attendees. He would compile all of those and put them in little like piles, and he'd lay them out at the table. So at Acre, I talked to Chad about him stocking. They have like a canteen area with snacks and stuff. So he'll unpackage those orders and put the snacks in different places. At his parents' company, he also would alphabetize and file invoices for whatever purchases from customers. And so at Acre, they have a fabric resource library. It's like drawers with all of the fabric samples. He alphabetizes and sorts all of those, and he loves that too. Because it's very granular, very detail-oriented. He likes feeling all of the different fabrics. He likes looking at all the fabrics. He likes like the names. He likes to talk to me about the different names of the different fabrics. He likes to learn about the different types of fabrics that they have. He really does like that task. And then he also would have some computer tasks at his parents' company. And I knew that he told me that he likes having computer tasks as well. So at Acre, he has this responsibility where he updates the marketing website directory. So all of their people who they've sent emails to in the past, he doesn't gather emails. He just updates the different websites of the different people that have been on the mail list so that they can maintain accurate information. And what he tells me is that there's a lot of companies that have changed their websites or changed their names or have gone out of business. And so he researches that. And that's a pretty big task for him when he doesn't have spec checks. But the spec checks are, by and large, it is what he was hired for. He is phenomenally, just incredibly adept at them. And he was pretty much right off the bat, because instead of a lot of the people who perform spec checks, they will look at the product name. And that leads to inaccuracies because sometimes the computer messes up. Logan looks at the serial number. And so he'll look at the serial number of everything that's on the blueprint, and he counts by that because he can memorize it. And the other people at his company can't. I've been told that he is far more accurate and way, way, way faster than anyone else at the company who does the spec checks. And the figure that I was given by his manager was that they make roughly, I think it's $15,000 to $30,000 of mistakes per month. It can be that costly. So it is something that they value vastly, and he is learning more and more of the different rules of how they structure their furniture. And so it's the fact that he can understand the blueprint. He understands by looking at the blueprint what piece of furniture it is and how it is configured. And he understands and can apply the rules of the different ways that they create furniture. And I will just give this one example. There was a spec check that he did. It was like a test spec check when he was still learning. It took him 51 minutes, including his bathroom break, because he timed himself on his phone. And that same spec check had taken a team of 3 people 3 hours. So, and he caught more mistakes. So he is just phenomenal at these spec checks, and he loves them. It is his favorite thing to do. He really loves his workplace. He is very proud of the work that he does, and it is a very welcoming and loving environment. They really are just so accepting of him. And part of that is that they were specifically looking for someone who had a disability, because they had a business associate in Colorado who had a man named Tom, I've been told, who does the spec checks, and their company loved the addition of this person, and so they were really looking to find someone who they could include and who could become part of their company. And every time I'm there, I'm told how much they love him, how great of a job he's doing, how he makes the whole office smile, how it's a better workplace now because of him being there. And so I couldn't have picked a better place if I had imagined it. It was just such an incredible discovery, and he's really happy now, and I could not be prouder.
I just I'm amazed at what a great fit this seems to be. Many people would look at someone who is good at doing Legos as just, it's someone who likes to build things, or it's someone who, can follow directions. But it feels to me like what the fit between that kind of skill set that he had and that he showed to you in doing the Legos, and as well as the other kind of office things that he was doing, really fit so nicely into the requirements that they had for this job that they were looking to fill. And it's just amazing to me when you do this level of discovery, that you can make such a perfect fit, which is what it feels like.
Yeah.
So you've talked about how you got to know Logan and how you supported Logan and helped him transition into this new job. Talk a bit about what you're doing to Fade Supports.
So Fading Supports, it's actually funny that you ask this question at this specific time, because now my arrangement is that I go in once a week. Most of the time, I'm working next to him. I'm not really directly supporting because he's good. The spec checks, I look at that, I don't know what he's doing. He knows what he's doing. I understand the rules and the things that he needs to do. And so if he ever has questions, I can help him, but I can't do it the way he does it. And to be honest, I don't think I could count. It would take me a very long time. So I'm working next to him. I'm talking to him about his week. If his mom ever needs any pay stubs, I now just help him. I stand over his shoulder and I help him navigate his company's employee manager system, so that he can download them and send them to her. Last week when I was there, we were in the Fabric Resource Library. The head of the sales department, who he also works pretty closely with, they got in a new shipment of fabric samples. She was having him box them and put them into separate containers because the drawers were full. They're pretty full. He's been telling me for a while that they're full. So there were 2 instances where I was going to maybe ask a question to help him do the job maybe the way that she was expecting. But then he asked them on his own before I even had the chance to ask them. So I was able to see, oh, great, I'm not needed here. And I was really glad that he was able to say those things. I told him, I'm proud of you. That was really cool. I was going to say things, but you said them. And so I really just go in. It's 2 hours a week, not really even a full 2 hours. And I just make sure that if there's anything that needs to be communicated with his manager, I'll check in, say, hey, how are things going? What we're working on mostly now is just workplace boundaries, what's appropriate, what maybe could be talked about later. But he has really, really grown in his position. And I'm just there because he wants me to check in on him and enjoys when I go and I check in and I work next to him and he'll tell me about whatever he is into that week and we talk and I just make sure that he has whatever he needs, but he is very, very proficient and I don't know that I always will be needed there, and that's great.
That's great. I mean, that's the ideal, right? That we, as employment consultants, are fading back and helping individuals develop those natural supports and confidence in their own ability to say, hey, even if something comes up that I'm not sure about, I know who to go to and ask, and I feel confident and comfortable asking those questions. So that's awesome.
Yeah, he's an awesome guy.
So, Cynthia, you talked early in the story about the connection that was made between someone from Reach for Resources who had met an employee of Acre at a networking event.
Yes.
I'd like to explore that a little bit because networking really is a key component of customized employment, and it's really a great way to find those fits, between skills and abilities and interests and needs, employer needs in the community. So I'd like to talk for a minute about networking. Is this something that you do much of in your role as an employment consultant?
So there is, of course, the aspect of networking. I would call that namely when I'm reaching out to employers and trying to speak to someone who has some sort of hiring capacity. I'll generally ask for a hiring manager if I am cold calling. I would say that is the biggest aspect. I mean, there's also in my personal life, if I ever have a question specifically for various industries, if my friends, just the people that I know personally, are in a specific industry, I will often ask questions about, hey, do you know, for example, I have a guy who I support who I really would like to customize like an art studio support position because he really likes art. And he doesn't have a super positive response to a lot of things. He has very neutral responses to most things. But art is something that he's interested in. And I've gone on discovery activities with him where we went and we painted ceramic, like little things at Color Me Mine, which is just like one of those ceramic painting places. And he was very happy and very talkative. And that was just a side of him that I hadn't really seen until we went and did that. So I have a friend who is an artist. She works in like nonprofit art management and outreach as her day job, but then she also works with a ceramic studio. So I talked to her about, hey, what would this look like? What are some things I could do? Do you know of any studios that are maybe looking for someone who would be amenable to like maybe customizing this role, and just trying to go from there. It's,
Sure.
I mean, it's often about who you know and not what you know. And so I think, I mean, we're all aware of how important networking can be. Even, I mean, this is how it was framed when I have been in trainings, when I was getting my own like job training when I started at Reach, and in Reach puts all of us through Minnesota Customized Employment Training with DEED. So we learned, with DEED, we were asked, I mean, how many of you, your first job was through someone you know? It's the vast majority of us. So
Right.
The networking piece can be extremely important. In Logan's case, I was very fortunate that our executive director, Kate, is a powerhouse, and she really does everything she can to leverage her community and network connections. And so she was the person who was at this networking event and who met with the VP of sales at Acre. And she told him about our organization and what we do. And he jumped on it. And because of that, Logan's life is so much richer.
Awesome.
So, Cynthia, what do you want people in your community to know about employment for people with disabilities?
I think the biggest thing for me is just that in supported employment situations, everyone who is touched by that situation is benefited. I, as the job coach, am benefited because my life is so much richer because of this role and the people that I support. This is work that I want to be doing, and I'm really happy that I get to. The people that we support are benefited because they have increased access to community inclusion. They get to feel a sense of pride about their work, about their day. They get to feel valued and appreciated. And that is what everyone deserves in a workplace, and throughout all workplaces in America. I truly believe that everyone deserves to find the place where they feel that way. The employer is benefited. All of the coworkers, all of the employees at the companies that most if not all of the people that I support their lives are richer because of their connection with the people that we support. The customers of the companies as well are generally positively impacted by the people that we support. People enjoy interacting with the people that we support. People with disabilities have so much to offer that is so unique. And again, in my opinion, everyone is benefited by that situation. And I wish that more people knew that, because I think it's something that our society generally believes because this role exists. But a lot of people who would not support, specifically Reach for Resources does a lot of work with policy advocacy to end the existence of subminimum wages in Minnesota. And a lot of people who are in opposition to that do not see all of the value that can be done. But with supported employment, these success stories can happen, and we as employment specialists want to be doing that work. So, in my opinion, there's just no reason for that not to be going forward.
Thank you very much, Cynthia, for joining us today and sharing some of your experiences doing this important work. Thank you, listeners, for tuning into this episode. We hope you join us next time to hear another compelling story of one person finding one job in the community.
Thank you for joining us for the Job Matchmakers podcast, funded by the Minnesota Department of Human Services. This podcast is a partnership between the University of Minnesota's Institute on Community Integration and UMass Boston's Institute for Community Inclusion.
For more information on the Minnesota Transformation Initiative, visit our website, linked in the show notes. We're glad you joined us, and we'll see you next time.